Good evening and thank you for joining us. A fatal industrial accident in Kai Tak this afternoon has claimed the lives of 2 female workers and left 3 others injured. Scaffolding at a construction site collapsed onto the workers. The scaffolding belongs to the construction site of the Panel Harbor residential project in Kai Tak. At around 5 p.m., police received a report that a large piece of scaffolding on Shengfu Lane collapsed with at least 4 women and a man injured. 3 of them, all workers, were trapped beneath the fallen poles and boards. 2 of the 3 victims, aged 54 and 68, were unconscious while being extricated from the scaffolding. They succumbed to their injuries and were certified dead at hospital. The residential project Panel Harbor was co-developed by Poly Property and China Resources Land, offering 582 units. It's expected to receive occupation permits from the Buildings Department in the second quarter this year. The construction site had another industrial accident in the middle of last month. A male worker in his 40s was hit by concrete while at work. In November last year, a fire broke out on scaffolding at the same site. Around 40 workers sought shelter on the rooftop, with more than 100 others being evacuated. No one was injured in that incident. Xia Baolong, head of Beijing's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, is understood to be coming to Hong Kong on a 6-day trip starting Thursday. The purpose of his visit is related to national security legislation under Article 23 of the Basic Law. Xia will also try to understand more about the economic development of Hong Kong and the latest governance by the administration. Chief Executive John Lee did not confirm Xia's visit directly, but said officials from the central government have had much care towards Hong Kong and will make announcements if they engage in any public events. In April last year, Xia Baolong, head of Beijing's top office overseeing Hong Kong affairs, undertook his fact-finding mission in Hong Kong, also for 6 days. He made visits to neighborhoods and delivered speeches at seminars back then. It's understood that during this second 6-day trip to Hong Kong, Xia will meet with various sectors to tap views over Article 23 legislation. Speaking to reporters before today's Executive Council meeting, Chief Executive John Lee did not directly confirm Xia's trip to Hong Kong, but he said senior Beijing officials care about the SAR.
I have visited Beijing twice for my duty report. Whether it was President Xi Jinping or other government officials from the central authorities, they stressed that they are very concerned about the affairs of Hong Kong.
While the consultation period for Article 23 legislation is poised to wrap up next Wednesday, when will the bill be tabled in the Legislative Council for the first reading? As the annual sessions of the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference will start early next month, a number of Hong Kong legislators who are also the 2 sessions delegates have to attend the annual plenary meetings in Beijing. With that, the next Legislative Council meeting will only be convened on March 13th, meaning Article 23 legislation will be scrutinized in the legislature around mid-March at the earliest.
We will, of course, report the overall result of the consultation in due course to LegCo. And then the general consensus is if we can do it 1 day earlier, we should do it 1 day earlier because the threat continues. And the threat actually has been mounting.
Veteran political commentator Lau Siu-kai, who's now a consultant to the Chinese Association of Hong Kong and Macau Studies, said addressing doubts and concerns will likely be the focus of Xia's visit to Hong Kong. And as the consultation period is coming to an end, Xia will have a better grasp of public opinions, Lau said. More than 1,600 trainee doctors in South Korea's major hospitals walk off their jobs today to protest against a government plan to increase the number of medical school admissions. As of last night, more than half of the country's 13,000 trainee doctors were confirmed to have resigned en masse. The move has caused delays in surgeries and other treatments, and the government has ordered emergency measures such as the opening up of military clinics. Tracy Furness has more.
Trainee doctors gathered in Seoul for a meeting today after a squabble between the government and doctors' groups over the government's plan to boost medical school admissions by 2,000 from next year. The current annual figure is 3,000, and the government wants to eventually add 10,000 more by 2035. More than 1,600 trainee doctors in South Korea's major hospitals had walked out in protest by 11 p.m. Monday night, with 6,400 of the 13,000 doctors and interns at major hospitals having submitted their resignations. Health official Park Min-soo condemned a nationwide strike by trainee doctors. The government will do its utmost to operate an emergency medical response system to minimize harm to patients, he said. This 63-year-old retiree said, "I heard we have a lower number of doctors among developed countries, so I don't understand why trainee doctors are walking off the job. We should increase the number of doctors so people in rural areas can access medical care." South Korea's population of 52 million had 2.6 doctors per 1,000 people in 2022, far below the average of 3.7 for countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And a Gallup Korea poll last week showed 76% of South Koreans backed a plan for more medical students. But doctors and medical students say there are already enough physicians, and an increase in numbers could lead to unnecessary medical procedures and undermine the finances of the National Health Insurance Plan. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
A spokesman for Yemen's Houthi group said its forces had hit 2 ships with missiles in the Gulf of Aden. This as European Union foreign ministers meet in Brussels to launch a naval mission to protect cargo ships in the Red Sea. Houthi spokesman Yahya Sarriya said one of their attacks damaged a Belize-flagged ship traveling through a strait connecting the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The Ruby Mar vessel was at risk of sinking, though reports said that all crew members were safe. The U.S. military said it was conducting new airstrikes targeting Houthi rebels in attempts to curtail their ability to strike ships. The EU naval mission, dubbed as Speeds, the Greek word for shield, will be run out of Larissa in central Greece, home to the Hellenic Air Force and the NATO headquarters. However, the EU said it is a defensive mission and will not take part in any military strikes and will only operate at sea. Ursula von der Leyen will seek a second term as president of the European Commission. The 65-year-old has vowed to defend democracy from those who seek to destroy it. David Garrett reports.
Ursula von der Leyen laying out how she intends to continue to lead Europe's executive body. The first woman to head the Commission was elected in 2019. She told allies in Germany her aim is to defend democracy. I always have to be colourblind and represent the interests of the 27 members, she told the Christian Democrats Party. I also have to promote our position and make it clear what it means for the future of Europe. The European Commission's 13th president, she will likely be nominated in March as the lead candidate of the European People's Party. It's a centre-right umbrella group, including her CDU in Germany, that has been the largest party in the European Parliament since 1999. As Commission President, von der Leyen attends most international summits. Forbes named her the most powerful woman in the world. A mother of 7, she is currently the boss of about 32,000 EU employees and shapes much of the bloc's political agenda. She has taken steps towards cracking down on cheap Chinese electric vehicles. She declared at last week's Munich Security Conference she'll appoint an EU Commissioner for Defence if she remains in her post as President, with Russia's war in Ukraine heading into its 3rd year. Before her current role, von der Leyen had a series of ministerial posts under former German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She was once seen as Merkel's successor before she took a different path in the EU. David Garrett, TVB News.
Last week, 2 Fujian fishermen fell into the sea from their boat and died after being chased by Taiwan authorities in waters off Kinmen, which is under Taipei's rule. Family members of the deceased reached Kinmen this morning and called for a thorough investigation. The 6 family members arrived in Kinmen for a 2-day stay, escorted by lawyers and representatives of the Red Cross. Funeral rituals were undertaken. A Red Cross representative said the family members demand access to the full video recording of the fatal incident. Mainland Marine authorities recently announced that they would carry out more regular patrols around Xiamen and Kinmen. Asia's biggest air show is back in Singapore. It is the first biennial event in 6 years because of the pandemic. China was able to showcase its brand new C919. The aircraft is the first large self-developed passenger jet produced by the state-run Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. It took a test flight in Singapore earlier this week. The airshow will also host performances by aerobatic teams from India, Australia, Indonesia, and South Korea. Another Chinese creation, the ARJ-21, is also on display. This 90-seat jet has been flying from Shanghai since 2008. In all, 50 countries are involved with 1,000 companies represented over 5 days. The national security trial of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai continues. Today, former Apple Daily associate publisher Chen Pui-man continued her testimony as an accomplice witness. She said Lai hoped to get more international support through publishing the English edition of Apple Daily. Chen says she heard from former NIC's digital CEO Chen Kim-hong that Apple Daily staff must follow Lai's instructions on which articles to translate into English. She added that Lai mentioned the company will receive more overseas support if there are more readers of the English edition. She said Lai remarked it would be better if U.S. politicians were among its readers. In a suspected case of child abuse and neglect, a 3-year-old girl was found on the canopy of the 4th floor outside a building in Shamshui-po this morning. She was allegedly left alone at home by her parents. The girl was spotted standing precariously outside an exterior wall of a building on Wangchuk Street. Her head was wedged in a laundry rack. It's understood the mother rushed back home after finding out about the incident and led her neighbors into the apartment to help bring the child to safety. The girl sustained no injuries. Following initial investigation, the 44-year-old mother was arrested on suspicion of child abuse or neglect of a child or young person under her care. In Tengchong, a head-on crash between 2 double-decker buses left at least 8 people injured. The collision happened near Yingtong Estate at around 3 p.m. A Route E21A city bus double-decker and a Route 37M and new Lantau bus vehicle crashed into each other on Yingtong Road. At least 8 passengers sustained minor injuries, including 5 men and 2 women aged between 12 and 69. All of them have been sent to hospital for treatment. Humidity remains high in the city. Relative humidity levels across the city rose to above 90% due to the effects of ocean currents. Much of the SAR continues to be covered in fog today. Several areas recorded temperatures of around 26 degrees Celsius. That's up to 3 degrees warmer than yesterday. Relative humidity levels are set to reach 100% on Thursday. This as temperatures in the city are expected to drop between the latter part of the week and early next week. A low of 15 degrees is forecast for next Thursday. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.